How do I invite people?
This from over here? No,
You need the address.
well, I have an address, but last time I did this, it asked for 4, 2,
Can you sign in?
I don't know what my password is. I still haven't gotten anything.
I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
So do the link.
Yeah,
The links, the 2 links I have are both for the 10 o'clock one.
What's the address again? 704-201-174.
Oh, see, you got in. No?
Mm-hmm.
You did.
Okay, try again, Lonnie.
Try with what? Just. Mm-hmm.
Is that I can see the song? I'm gonna mute myself.
I did the same.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off my sound. Okay. Tony, can you hear us? Or
Can anyone hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. We can't, you're not very loud.
Yeah, I'm working on resetting the IPv4 invite now.
Thank you.
IPv4 is in, but Bonnie is not.
Oh, Bonnie's not. Okay, let me do that now as well, or instead.
Or is this Sylvia?
Yeah, I logged in as myself.
Sylvia logged in as yourself. So Sylvia's IPv4. And if you're listening in the audience, we apologize. We'll be on in just a minute when we get our tech figured out here.
Okay, I can see your chat.
And are people able to use the chat at this point? Bonnie's getting a message that the host is in another meeting. The chat works. For panelists, does the audience have chat ability? Can't use the chat.
Why did mine go?
Yes, now you have, okay, now you have access to chat.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Oh. There we go. Yes, now we do.
Okay, now I have it. Now I have it.
This slide has the old number on it. That's the webinar ID. You know, the Zoom meeting number is different. Meeting ID number?
Yeah, oops.
Is not right on that slide.
Okay, it looks like we're about ready to start. And it is 11:33, so I think we should probably get going. Is that okay?
Yep, and we're good to go, I think.
And Bonnie, do you want to get us started?
Sure,
with tips for
sure.
participating?
I think you've probably already heard from Tony, and I want to welcome you to our Migrant 201 Elementary School Supports webinar. We have a couple of tips for participating. One is that you share comments and ideas in the chat panel. I think it's working now. Oops. I just lost my video. There we go. Okay, so webinar etiquette. If you aren't speaking, please mute your audio. Participate with a growth mindset. Focus on the topic and stay present. Assume positive intent. Respect diverse viewpoints and opinions. So here we are. Now we're at the Migrant 201 Elementary School Supports, exploring topics related to equity and graduation success. By the end of this webinar, you should be able to understand why you should focus on foundational supports for migrant students in elementary school, learn high leverage strategies to support migrant students, gain awareness of resources you can use to get started. My name is Bonnie Zimmerman. This is my very first webinar. I'm joined by Sylvia, Reyna, and from our Migrant Bilingual program here at OSPI. She's a program supervisor. And Luz Prieto, the Executive Director of Federal and State Programs at Grandview School District. So here at OSPI, our vision is that all students are prepared for post-secondary pathways, careers, and civic engagement. And our values are ensuring equity, collaboration, and service, achieving excellence, focus on the whole child. Here at the Office of System and School Improvement, which is where the GATE initiative resides, we believe we are more likely to see school improvement across multiple measures if we focus on schools, connect programming to specific needs, build the health of systems, provide professional learning on data inquiry and supportive resources and tools. So we have another webinar this afternoon, and it's a makeup webinar, and it's Mentoring 101, Demystifying Mentoring. Hope you can join us for that webinar as well. And next month, our focus will be dual credit. So the morning webinar on March 13th will be Dual Credit 101, Increasing Equitable Access and Supporting Success. The second one in the afternoon from 1 to 2 will be Dual Credit 201, Engaging Student Interests with High School and Beyond Planning and CTE. Right now we're going to run a poll. We kind of want to see who's in the audience. Kathy, I don't have the poll. Oh, you have the poll. Sorry. Thank you. We want to know who you are, and if you fall in the other category, maybe type what you are into the chat so we know who we're talking to. And then also we'd like to know how familiar you are with our topic today. We'll give you a few minutes to answer this poll, and then we'll share the results with you.
Oh, it's a little different than the first one.
And we're going to share the results.
Okay. Oh, wow. So we have counselors, and everyone is somewhat familiar. We have a few that are very familiar with our topic. We have administrators, teachers, parents. That's great. Welcome. ESDs, district people, and others. And the other, do we know what the other is? No?
Not yet.
Nobody told us yet what they are. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
The other person is Anna, and she's Migrant Records Clerk.
Okay, great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Okay, big question is why? And I think we have Sylvia, Reyna from Migrant Bilingual here to talk to you about the why.
So why migrant students and EL students for elementary school support? And it's important that we address their needs from the very beginning of their PK-12 schooling so that we can identify what it is they need and build pathways so that as our migratory students are moving across the state and across the nation, we have systems in place to help support their continuous education. And thank you, staff, for inviting the Migrant Education Program and the Bilingual Ed Program to present today. We had a webinar earlier this morning. Not too sure if some of the participants who are listening right now were able to join us for the morning part, but this is a continuation. It's mostly focused on the Migrant Ed Program, but there will be some cross references to EL students as well. So just a blend of the two. And my name is Sylvia Reyna. I'm a program supervisor here with the Migrant Education Program at OSPI, and I've been with the Migrant Ed Program for over 20 years. So this is near and dear to my heart. I'm a former migrant student in Washington State, and I really appreciate what the program tries to do and leverage its resources with other programs and services in Washington State and across the nation. So to be a migrant student, you need to have moved within the last 36 months across school district boundaries for fishing and or agricultural purposes, and they're temporary or seasonal in nature. This is a map, and I hope you can see it well. It's tiny, but it's where migrant students are found in Washington State. We currently have over 30,000 students identified ages 0 through 21, and we report to the Department of Education ages 3 through 21. And so for Washington State, they are identified in over 182 school districts, charter schools, and tribal schools. And about 90 school districts currently participate in receiving a local grant for regular year and summer program services. And we have over 500 high school migrant students participate in state-sponsored events in the summer. Why we focus on migrant students? Migrant students tend to be most at risk of not achieving our state and academic standards. And we recently had a study that was conducted of our migrant students nationally that identified 7 areas that are very, very critical to the academic success of our migrant students. And that was identified as the 7 areas of concern. So we look at their instructional time, opportunity to be in class, the access to services, educational continuity as they move in and out of different school districts and across the nation, English language development, and if you were in our morning session, you would have heard a little bit more about the English language component of migrant students, health and access to health services, knowing where to identify where are some of the health services and connecting with that, educational support in the home, and then school engagement. So these 7 areas are what we see in many at-risk student populations, but for the migrant student population, we tend to see all 7 as they move across district boundaries and are coming in and out of different communities and having those opportunities to connect with their local communities and their schools. In a recent document I was reviewing called Facilitating Educational Success for Migrant Farm Worker Students in the United States by Patricia Perez and Maria Estela Zarate, was published in 2017, they had big research ideas on a culturally proficient approach to addressing the needs of your migrant students. And so in terms of cultural proficiency, we're looking at those beliefs in learning that all students can learn, that we recognize the learning challenges that come with a mobile migrant student, that we incorporate language and cultural experiences of those migrant students in the instruction and those opportunities to learn, that we are engaging them and connecting with them from their cultural experiences and backgrounds. We need to look at our policies and practices locally. We have sometimes misconceptions of the migratory student in terms of their attendance, grade placement. Sometimes we believe that they really aren't at the correct level for their grade. And so we want to make sure that we are putting them in the correct level or the course. So sometimes these students actually have been accessing more rigorous courses, and maybe because they came in later into the school year, we place them in the incorrect course. So we want to make sure that we're using our tools that are available to us for appropriate grade level placement and course placement. We want to make sure that they're accessing other supplemental services for which they are eligible and entitled to receive. So our policies and our practices really want to make sure we connect the migrant student to the appropriate resource. And then opportunities for success. We want to make sure that our educators understand their migratory population, the lifestyle that's coming in and out of their communities. We are heavy agriculture in Washington State, and migrant students are coming in and out, and sometimes we just, maybe the student population is so tiny that we don't recognize that we do have a migratory population that's coming in and out of our districts. So we want to make sure that we're taking a little bit of time in our school year to identify if we do have migratory students, what is that pattern for our community, how are we addressing that? And then with our student and family, we want to make sure we're connecting those opportunities for advocacy and that we do value their migratory lifestyle, their heritage, and their history. And that we offer those continuous learning for educators to develop strategies that will help migrant students be engaged in their schools and in their learning and connections with families. So for implications to consider, we'd really love to see school districts and schools review their policies and practices that may be unintentional barriers to migrant students and their families. We do know that sometimes we put into place a practice that we think is ideal for all kids but then don't realize that it could be potentially a barrier. And then identify those opportunities where migrant families and their students can engage in their education. And then develop a support team that will champion or advocate on behalf of the migrant students and their families.
Great, thanks, Sylvia. Now we're going to do a poll, and the question is, we support our English learners in elementary school. Definitely, some, or we're working on this. And while you're taking the poll, we'd like to ask you to take a moment to reflect. After hearing all of this great information, what is one major takeaway you have? I guess those questions are for later. Oh boy, so definitely some of you support your English learners in elementary school, and some of you are just kind of working on it. We're glad you're here joining us. Hopefully the information you got from Sylvia will help you. Now we're going to introduce Luz Prieto from the Grandview School District. Luz, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
I was just trying to make sure that we had the slides ready on your end. Okay. All right. So my name is Luz Prieto, and I'm the Federal and State Programs Director for the Grandview School District. And I'm excited more than anything this morning to share with you what we've done, at least in our district, to ensure that we are starting early on to build some of those foundational supports for our migrant pre-K students. And so we have a program before the start of the school year for our migrant students. We call our Migrant Pre-Kinder Jumpstart program. And we have this, we've built in this little saying, from small beginnings come great things. And that's essentially what is the guide for our summer program. And so I'd like to share with you what a successful program may look like. And it kind of goes back to something that Sylvia shared earlier in relation to addressing the needs of our migrant students and starting as early as pre-K, because we want to build those pathways to success early on. And so we believe that having a pre-kinder jumpstart program is essential in building that pathway for student success. So a little bit about our school district. We are located in the eastern part of Washington. And as you can see from our demographics, we have a high percentage of low-income students. And as part of that low-income population, we have ELLs, students with disabilities. Of course, we have a migrant population and students who are part of Section 504. And for us, a few of the greater reasons that we started looking at our migrant students was because we started noticing that there was a great academic achievement gap with our incoming kindergarten migrant students. We took a closer look at our WAKIDS data, and we quickly realized that our migrant subgroup kindergarten students were most at risk. The second thing that drove change in that area and an area of much needed support was the Washington State Early Learning Plan that was issued in 2010, which really emphasized the need for ensuring that all children in our state had what they needed starting as early as pre-K. And of course, we also took a look at the migrant children's 7 areas of concern. And we soon realized that this migrant population is at most at risk of not meeting state standards, which we verified by looking at the data, again, from our WAKIDS information that could be found on the OSPI state report card. So some of the things that we discovered by looking through those different data analysis pieces was that our migrant kinder students had a lot of risk indicators. And again, it goes back to some of those 7 areas of concern that Sylvia has already shared earlier in terms of working with the migrant children and their families. And so we knew that our migrant pre-K population was most at risk. WAKIDS data also, again, by conducting that data analysis piece, we also determined that the academic gaps that existed with those children as they were incoming kindergarten students in our district were great in most of the academic areas. I mean, we looked at areas from the WAKIDS tool that greatly exhibited an awareness for looking at the different readiness areas in reading, math, social, emotional, physical, and all of the other criteria that come along when you look at that developmental tool piece that is connected specifically related to the WAKIDS data. Then we also found out in just speaking with our different migrant families that, you know, because of their extensive migratory mobility lifestyle, that at times the access to preschool was also a barrier. And so, of course, in looking at all of those 3 different things, we noticed that we had a great need to offer something that would help support the readiness skills for those pre-K migrant students as they were entering kindergarten in our district. And so that drove the need for our pre-kinder readiness program for the Grandview School District. And so as a result, after looking at all of those different indicators, the first step that we took was that we wanted to ensure that we could provide a program that would offer a jumpstart for those migrant students before entering kindergarten. And so in order to support that piece, we had to look for some type of funding. And so, of course, we applied for Migrant Summer Program funding to ensure that we could provide a pre-K program, a jumpstart program prior to the start of the school year. So again, the next step being that we would have to plan and, of course, support the implementation of a migrant pre-kinder jumpstart program. And lastly, I mean, what we have to do to continue to support this pre-kinder jumpstart program is to continue to identify and recruit these migrant pre-K age children, which involves a lot of systematic change and supports as we do that. Some of the themes that we noticed, well, again, like I just shared, 2 of the essential ones being the recruitment and the program planning. So as you think about recruitment, you have to take into consideration that your migrant families are moving quite a bit during the course of this time frame. And so it makes it very difficult to try to identify and recruit these pre-K age children while they're in your area. And to get them connected to this pre-K jumpstart program, we also had to do some community outreach, because we soon discovered that there were other agencies within the community that possibly some migrant families were reaching out to in order to try to get their children enlisted in either childcare services while they were working during the day. And so we quickly developed some partnerships to ensure that we were able to conduct some of that community outreach in order to get a lot of those migrant pre-K age children enlisted into this migrant pre-K jumpstart program. And so then again, as we moved forward with planning this program, we had to ensure that we had the funding to support it. Of course, recruit and hire staff that would be willing to teach during that time frame over the course of the summer. And we had to make sure that we had the curriculum and the instruction that was developed in alignment to meet the needs of the migrant pre-K age children. And so some key strategies and interventions that we had to take into consideration when planning this pre-K Jumpstart program. So we knew that by looking at what these students needed based on a couple of prior data analysis dives, that we knew from the get-go that all of our pre-K migrant students needed to have reading and math instruction. Some of those students, not all, needed to have EL supports as well, in addition to the reading and math instruction. And then a few of all of the students needed additional support with developmental, social, and emotional readiness. And so systematically, our process for building this system was that we actually took the state service delivery plan measurable program objectives, and we looked specifically at the school readiness strategies and MPOs as a guide in determining how to take the next step in planning and aligning our migrant pre-kinder jumpstart program with those measurable program outcomes. And as a result of that, we've been able to implement and deliver a program that we have found some success with. And so as we continue to do that, we're always looking at our migrant kinder achievement data, specifically at our WA kids data. But most importantly, we're also looking at the data after the program has ended to determine the impact of program at that time. So what advice would you give to people starting this work? I think that I would take into consideration the 3 different areas that you see listed there. And the first and foremost one being that, that you elicit data-driven decisions. And so part of that process may include looking at your district comprehensive needs assessment and really looking at the greater picture of things to determine what areas drive the greater priority for need of service. The other one is to look specifically at your migrant student performance data, of course, in this case. And the best tool that we've used in doing so is to look at our migrant student database, and many of you may know it as MSIS, where you look specifically at reports and some of those data analysis tools to assist you with that process. And because we are talking about pre-K kinder migrant students, we look at WA kids report data through the OSPI state report card. So those, I would recommend that some of those resources be looked at when you're thinking about that data-driven decision making. The other is to ensure that you are always looking at those continuous improvement plans just within the scope of your district or your agency to specifically look at how the migrant student group is being supported through those district and building level improvement plans. I already kind of made a mention a little bit to the Migrant State Service Delivery Plan goals and outcomes, because that's important. Like I said, we have used the Migrant State Service Delivery Plan MPO specifically around school readiness to ensure that our migrant pre-K Jumpstart program is in alignment with that. And of course, always keep in mind that if you are applying for migrant funding every year, that is critical, of course, because, and you see that I've noted there that would make you a project district if you are applying and receiving funding. And so you have to make sure that you have the funding to support the implementation of any type of migrant support service program. And lastly, the partnerships. I would most importantly, form partnerships with those resources that you may find either within your region, your community. And for us, it's been our early learning centers just within the community. Our ESD, the ESD in our region has been a great resource. We've worked extensively with them in many different cases, whether it be to provide a couple of professional learning opportunities around specifically migrant student 7 areas of concern, migrant early learning, and any other needs that we've needed specifically to address those needs of the migratory families. And again, like I said, the community-based organizations and resources have been important as well.
Thank you, Luz. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I know we had to reschedule, and you have had a busy morning, and we appreciate you and the effort you made to be here.
Yes, thank you.
So we would like to get a little bit more information from you, our audience, about our webinars. So we're going to try something different this month and run our evaluation as a poll. If you will take a few minutes and answer the poll questions in front of you and submit them, we would really appreciate it. Also, as you're doing this, if you're considering clock hours, and we are offering clock hours today, you would need to complete this poll and the one in PD Enroller. In order to get 3 clock hours for today, you should have attended the first webinar at 10 this morning, this one, and then the bonus webinar at 1 o'clock this afternoon.
And if you have questions for presenters, we do have time for those. So feel free to put those questions in the Q&A, and we can get you more information.
Oh, good. We appreciate your feedback, and we will use this to improve our delivery in the future, and topics that are relevant to you or people with boots on the ground. Resources, I think that we have provided some resources in the chat box for you. If you have any questions about those resources, you are free to reach out to any of us and we will help you. And here are some English learner resources. I believe they're all links, aren't they? Are they links? Yeah, they're links. So that if you go to our PowerPoint on the Gate Equity website, you look up today's webinars and you can get this PowerPoint. Those links will be active.
And we also put them in the chat.
And I think Ronnie's also going to put them in the chat for you, so you can look for them there. So the Creative Commons, except for where otherwise noted, this work by the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction is licensed under a Creative Commons license. Many of our images come from canva.com and then the nounproject.com. Thank you, Ronnie. Again, I'm Bonnie Zimmerman. I was joined by Sylvia, Reyna, and Luz Prieto, and here's our contact information. If you need to get in touch with us, we'd be happy to help you. So here's some discussion questions for the chat. If you're still on and want to participate, what are the big ideas you got from today? What are your next leadership moves? What did you value in the presentation? And what questions do you still have? We're here to answer questions. Sylvia is still here. I think Luz is still online on the telephone line. So if you have questions, please let us know. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about the professional development component of your program? Luz, are you still there?
Can you hear me? I was kind of disconnected.
Oh, good. Yes. Yes. Did you hear
What
my
was the
question?
question? What
Can
was
you
the-
talk a little bit about the professional development component of your program?
Okay, so we have two different moments in time when we capture some of that professional development. And so prior to the Pre-K Jumpstart program, we have 3 to 5 days before the initiation of that where we partner with our ESD, and we have them come down and we dedicate a day specifically to just the learning for our Pre-K Jumpstart staff, admin, and anybody else who will be supporting that program piece, including transportation. And we specifically focus on like Migrant 101. There's now a Migrant Early Learning PD offering that the ESD has been able to support us with. And anything else that relates to migrant professional learning that they have to offer, we will provide that on day one. The other 2 days are specifically around addressing math and literacy specifically for migrant pre-K age children. And so we have a combination of presenters for that. And sometimes we're able to partner with the ESD. So we might have their math or literacy or their early learning field office person come down and partner with one of our instructional coaches or our migrant pre-K Jumpstart administrator to provide that PD prior to. And then once the Pre-K Jumpstart program gets up and running, we offer daily PLC time for those teachers that's built into their day soon after the students leave for the day so that they could further look at those daily adjustments with the curriculum and planning pieces for those pre-K migrant students. And so that again is supported as needed by instructional coach, the Migrant Summer Programs Coordinator, and or ESD support staff as we need them.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking to see if we have any other questions. I don't see any. Well, we appreciate you attending. We know that it was a difficult time after here, those of us on the west side of the mountains that got snowed in. We weren't able to provide you with this opportunity last week. So again, we do appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Thank you.